Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm here to bring you a little show that I like to call a roadmap for funding your future. First off, I'd like to thank the crew over at RDIC for giving me the opportunity to present this to people and to help them in this stressful time for many, many kids and families as they look to planning for their future. So, who am I? My name is Mike Lear. I've been a guidance counselor with Regina Public Schools now for about 16 years. I've been at Campbell Collegiate for the last 8, and this is just one of the passion areas that I have, and I love to help kids and families work their way through and getting rewarded with some fantastic opportunities that are available through scholarships and other means. So, what today's going to look like, hopefully, I can kind of give you some opportunities to equip yourself with some of the options and financial supports that are there for kids um, as they move forward. It's a stressful time. It's education is getting more and more expensive, and competition for these scholarships is also going up as grades and other things start to become higher and higher. So it's an opportunity to look at some of the stuff. I'm going to provide some deeper knowledge of ways to fund it, and hopefully by putting in some of that work, we can help to reduce some of the burden that education can have on families. And so the importance of this, I guess, is just to plan early. So my hope is that students in grade 10 and 11 are starting to look at this so that when they are in grade 12, they can hit the ground running. So some of the things I'm going to look at, I do want to touch on intros and myths. I am going to briefly touch on student loans and bursaries and just what it is, the difference between the student loan and the student line of credit. As a lot of families, this is an opportunity for them to fund the education. I'll also look at, for our students that are looking at going into the trades, just some of the benefits of the Sask Youth Apprenticeship Program, and maybe quickly touch on the different pathways into getting into the trades. There's not just one simple way. We'll look at how to get started on that pathway to scholarships, what I'm going to need, and then just that process itself. So that's the idea that success is found in the process. You know, by working towards these scholarships, students will be better equipped for the future. Being able to look at how to fund, future projects as they get into the workforce, things like that. So, and then the long drive for scholarships. The idea that this isn't finish grade 12, do it for 1 year and then end. The idea is that this is something that students are looking at doing for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So let's get started. First, I want to just start with some maybe myths and misconceptions. I think a lot of people believe that everything is about grades, and grades are obviously important, and some scholarships do rely on grades. Many of our entrance scholarships that are given directly out of high school from the universities, those will be, and I do touch on those a little bit as we move forward. But the vast majority of scholarships are more based on who you are as a person and just the passions that you have. 70% don't require students to demonstrate financial need. So that's another misconception. People often think because they make a certain level of income that they are not entitled to scholarships, and that's often not the case. Again, it's based on merit. It's based on that students' want and need in the sense of where it is that they're looking for those scholarships, and also just some of the passions that they have. Scholarships are available to students in all categories and all interests. So again, this is something, it's like, oh, it's only for athletes, it's only for musicians, it's only for this. But we find that if you're involved in STEM, if you're involved in science, if you're involved in the arts, maths, future in law, future in history, all those different types of things, there's so many different categories and different scholarships that are out there. So we really, really encourage people to just, really dig in and find out what's there. I think this is an important one. Scholarships go far beyond the first year of school. I always tell students that the hardest year to get those scholarships is year one. You've got people like myself, you've got parents, you've got just the nervousness of trying to fund your education, all pushing towards people applying for scholarships. But then once they get into university or get into any of the post-secondary institutions, often they find their way and they just miss out on a lot of the other scholarships that happen for years 2, 3, 4, and beyond. And then the last one is, in reality, scholarships exist for students at all years. Again, this is the idea that many of the unclaimed scholarships that you hear about are not for students in their first years. It is for those students in their third, fourth, fifth, and maybe into post-grad and grad planning. So we encourage kids to use this time right now to learn the process, to refine the process, and then to continue moving forward over the next number of years to continue to apply for different scholarships. So the next one I want to talk about is the difference between loans and bursaries, loans and lines of credit. So a student loan is provided through the government. So if you're going to school and you're a Saskatchewan resident, it doesn't matter what province you apply to, you will always apply for the Saskatchewan student loan unless you're planning on changing over all of your residencies. So repayment generally starts 6 months after your program has ended or you've ended your program. Eligibility, again, is based on students' financial need. In that first year, your family need and family income will be looked at, and then moving forward, it becomes mostly about that individual. There is no payments while you're in school, which is an added benefit, so that student's not having to worry about it. And then that funding, it can consist of a number of different pathways, and so that could be just tuition, it could be tuition, room and board, it could be tuition and a stipend for food, everything else. And so each person's individually going to be assessed differently, but I do encourage students often to apply for student loan even if they know they're not going to qualify, as there is some bursaries that are granted that can come from that. So taking the time can often be rewarded just with some financial gain that they get as a bursary, which doesn't have to be paid back. And then the difference between them and a line of credit, if you're going through a financial institution, so students that maybe don't qualify or have chose not to, student line of credit, often you'll be paying, it's a little bit different for each financial institution, but you'll be paying generally an interest-only type payment, and it's usually a prime plus 1, 2, 3 in that range. And so depending on the time of loans, obviously that rate is always changing, but it's about 3% is what you're going to be paying on that after the fact. Sorry, I think that might be a mistake. What I should be saying is you're paying interest only, which is between during the time you're in school, and then it'll go up as you're finished, similar to how the student loan does. Again, please make sure that you're checking with your financial institution. Take a look at the student loans website. They also have a lot of information on there. I'm definitely not an expert in this area. These opportunities to apply for the student loan often come in the middle of June, and we're often not around to be helping students once they actually are eligible to start applying for those. Next one I'll quickly touch on is the benefits of the Youth Apprenticeship Program. This one here is fantastic if you're looking at going into the trades. So any of the registered trades in Saskatchewan, students can start that program in grade 9, and they can work 3 different levels. In total, we'll give them 300 hours, so 100 hours per. Along with that, they have their registration for indentureship waived, which is about $150, and I think that's going up. They also get that free level 1 tuition, so their employer normally will be paying for a portion of this. The level that's left to be paid is given as a scholarship to them in that first year. And then there's also other financial incentives as you're moving forward that are really great with the apprenticeship. This is a program that, we're giving 300 hours, often can be completed in probably 15 or 20 hours of actual kind of classroom work, and then some other things that just go along with that. Going to career fairs, speaking and talking to junior persons, things like that. All really important just in that process of moving forward. But in the end, a really great opportunity for students to get a boot in the door and move towards the trades. Again, I encourage them to talk to their school guidance counselor, as this is an opportunity that all students do have. So with that, the way that works, the SYA starts in school. It said that there's a number of different ways that students can get into the trades. having worked in that industry and having family members, when employment is high, obviously the best route for a student is often to go directly into the workplace. So they would get hired, spend a little bit of time there, uh, then get offered an opportunity for them to do some apprenticeship work. Once they're signed on as an apprentice, again, if they have the SYA, they're already indentured and have that number, so it's just a matter of being attached to an employer. At that point, they would work, and then they would go to school for the designated time for their trade, and then come back. And while they're doing that, they're being paid by their employer, and then while in school, are often getting unemployment insurance or employment insurance. Um, and so the level of school, it will take 3 to 4 years depending on the trade that they're in, but along the way, the cost that they're going to the cost that's going to be to them is going to be minimized because the employer is covering a portion of that as well as employment insurance. The other option, and often when jobs are tough or when they don't have the skills that are needed, would be to look at one of the pre-employment courses that are offered either through SAS Polytech or some of our community institutions, depending on where you live. And again, those can be anything from an applied certificate that might be 8 to 10 weeks, all the way up to something that could be a 1 year where they'll gain the experience in the schooling for years 1 and 2, but maybe then just have to do the hours. Again, with these, there's often not a guarantee on employment. And then the third one that I don't have on here, but is an important one in Regina, would be looking at something like Regina Trades and Skills and the 12 to Trades program that will help them. And again, these are things that if you're on the RDIAC website, you'll have the links that have been made to both Regina Trades and Skills, apprenticeship, and moving forward. That are a good way to help fund, as they're a lower cost. With 12 to Trades, they are taken directly out of high school and given a really great opportunity to get some safety training and then a job over the summer that hopefully can lead to employment. So next one, and probably what most people are actually listening to this for, is the idea of scholarships and how we fund the next 1, 2, 4, maybe 6, maybe 8, depending on who we are. And how we can start to fund that. So first off, I will talk about institution-based scholarships. So an entrance scholarship, these are coming from your post-secondary institutions. So these will often be strictly based on your academics. So they're looking at your entrance average when you get into and apply. That will usually consist of grade 11 and or 12 marks, depending on when you're applying. You'll hear many different things: early admission, rolling admission, competitive admissions. Again, talk to your guidance counselors, check the websites. They'll help you with all of these. But normally, most universities in Canada will be looking at 5 or 6 courses that will be made up of those grade 11 and or completed grade 12 marks. That is the average that they're using for scholarships. So students often think, and families often think, that they're looking at all of your grades, so they're going to be, punitive and look at your lowest grades. But the way scholarships work in universities is that they are, one, very competitive in the sense that they're competitive to try to actually gain you as a student. Financially, they are a financial institution, and so they are, again, they're looking to recruit. So the quicker they can get money into your hand, the hope is that they can get you into their building for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So with that, the way that scholarships work on entrance scholarships is that if you do an early admission, that average would be calculated on those 5 or 6 marks at the end of semester 1. They will recalculate that average, and if it goes up, that's a benefit to you. And if it goes down, for the majority of institutions, as long as it's not a drastic drop, you will be able to retain that initial average that you started with. So we always encourage kids to apply early. Again, at the end of semester 2, it'll change over from an early admissions standpoint, and it'll look at a final admission. So now they're looking at just those grade 12 marks. Again, for some students, that may mean that your mark goes up, and we encourage those students, obviously, to continue to work towards that. And again, it's an opportunity. If that mark goes up, you will get the new higher average. But if it doesn't, you would still retain that average that you had on the initial, and that's what those scholarships are going to be based off. And those scholarships can go anywhere from $1,000, $500, right up to $3,500. And some will then also look at an addition to that could be that it allows you to apply for some of the bigger scholarships that come. So with universities, there's also application-based scholarships, which again is kind of what I was alluding to at the end there, which is with those six classes that they're going to use for that average. Depending on the average that you have, you may be eligible for more funding from them. So the University of Regina and University of Saskatoon, University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, both offer an entrance scholarship award to high school students for those that are over a 95. So in Saskatoon at the U of S, you're going to have your best and brightest, and the U of R have your Chancellor's Awards. Those are generally worth anywhere between $20,000 and $40,000, and that again will be based on an average, and usually you have to have a 95 plus average for that one, and then on top of it, they're going to look at some of the other extracurricular things that you're doing. So a lot of those are going to be based on just you as a person and the depth that you have and that you can bring to their university. So they're not necessarily looking for anything specific, but they are looking for you to show that you have a passion and a connection to something. So that might be robotics, it might be dance, it might be a sport, it might be music. Again, it can be just an interest that is something that they see that you have put a time and effort into and show some dedication, as that's the skills that they're looking for moving forward. One thing to note with those application-based scholarships, many of them will start as early as December 15th. I think the earliest one is December 1st in Canada, so we highly recommend that students get started early on with that, just so that they don't miss those great big ones if they have that average that allows them to do that. And then the last section would be the community-based scholarships. This is probably the largest segment and probably the one where the least amount of people put the work in. The university does a really good job of just the entrance scholarship. It's automatic. So when you apply, you don't have to do any extra paperwork. The application-based ones, again, they're sending out and pushing out a ton of information. They're providing you with great how-tos and videos, and some of them will have one-on-one sessions for students. And so there's a lot of work from universities that are put into that application side of things. And so we highly encourage students to take that on. We often find that grade 12 students think that universities will think that they're, and I'm using air quotes when I say stupid, but they often will say that, like, well, I can't ask for help. They won't take me. Again, they're a financial institution. These universities want your students. They want our students. They want their money. But they also know that that is obviously how they're going to get funded for the next years, is having them in the building. Students are never going to be penalized for asking questions. They're never going to be penalized for utilizing the time of the recruiters and the people that are employed by those universities. So we highly, highly encourage that. And we do our best in the schools to get them out into the schools as much as possible. So leading to that will be those community-based scholarships. These are the ones that students often do not put the time in for. So some of these could be something as simple as an internal school scholarship. Campbell Collegiate has about 400 graduates each year. We maybe have 75 or 80 students that put the time in to apply for our internal school scholarships. And the actual applications may be 15 or 20 minutes of work. The other one would be employer scholarships, service-based scholarships, and then scholarships just that are often put out there by employers. So I'm going to talk about this now for the next couple minutes, and just how to find those scholarships, what they actually consist of, and how we can best go about them. So how we're going to get those scholarships, it doesn't necessarily start with the scholarship itself, but putting in some of the work to get students ready so that when they find a scholarship that they are eligible for, that they have a lot of the paperwork and the things that they're going to need done and ready to go. So we highly encourage kids to get started early. So I'm going to jump around here a little bit on screens. These are, if you go onto the Regina Public Schools website under scholarships, there is a couple of different documents that can help you there. And I'm just going to be referencing those back and forth. So one thing that we highly recommend is that students start to log all of their accomplishments. can't get the link to work as I'm using a different program. But we do have on our website, and I will make those links available, that allow you to, we call it a brag sheet. So really just going through, it's kind of a vitae, a resume of all the different things that you can do. I think it's really important that um, those students do that. We often forget kind of the things that we do, or we don't put a lot of value into some of the everyday things that we partake in. And so we highly recommend those kids to take that, log those accomplishments, uh, ask your family, ask your friends, um, make sure that you remember all those different pieces that you've been doing. We don't need the things from grade 4, but if it's something significant and relevant, then make sure that we're putting those down. It's always better to have more than not enough. The next step would obviously be getting a few solid references and a good personal statement written about yourself. So um, again, the links that I'm trying to put on here don't seem to want to open that are part of the presentation. So I will just quickly talk about what that looks like. So from a reference standpoint, generally 2 or 3 references is all you're going to need, but making sure that they're good. So these are things that we can't just go and ask the day before and expect someone to do. A good reference you're going to need to put some work in yourself. Obviously, in developing that relationship with the person that you're asking, but also in just making sure that they have the information that you want portrayed for you. So, the way that I do it is a little different than others, I'm sure, but I ask kids for a resume, and then I have them sit down, and I will have kind of an outline of what I want to write, and then they very much write that reference letter with me in conjunction. So we're going through, we're making sure that we can make them sound, and build up the things that they're doing to the best that we can. And often, again, like I said, just people being human, we often downplay some of those things that we are involved in. And so it's just nice for us to be able to help them write that with them and have them a part of it. So one, we can develop that relationship together. I'm always amazed with some of the accomplishments that our students have outside of school that we would never know if I didn't do these references. And so having them sit down, take the time. I often say 2 or 3 weeks is what I would need to write a good reference letter, um, and students generally appreciate the time that I spend with that. But please do make sure that you're giving lots of notice for those people. On the website again, under scholarships under Regina Public Schools, there is a kind of an outline on how to get a reference, things that you can have done, things that you can give to the person that is going to write that letter for you. And then what I often tell students is just get 3 right off the bat that are somewhat generic in the sense of your accomplishments, very much based on who you are as a human being, the extra things that you've done, and how you are as a leader. Because the leadership piece is a major part of scholarships. And then when the time comes that you need those scholarships to be a little bit more personalized or a little more directed towards a place, you can just simply ask the person that is your reference just to fill it in, maybe whether it's to change a little bit of the wording if it's for a certain institution or for a different type of program. And then they can just send it out. But the amount of work that takes is pretty minimal, but it would already be ready to go, so that if you do find one and you only have a few days to get it prepared, then it's already ready to go. And then the second piece is just adding a personal statement. So again, a lot of these institutions are getting a ton of applications for these community-based scholarships, and so that personal statement needs to stand out. Doesn't need to have a lot of jargon and other things. It needs to be pretty concise. And so often they want only about 250 words. So I have students, again, my process is I help them to write that, but I make them write it, and it can be even 300, 400, 500 words. And then myself, and I usually try to find some of our English teachers, different people who are creative writing teachers, to help us to very much break that down and get it to be a well-written, 250 word, essentially paragraph on your personal statement, who you are and what it is that you want. And then many of these scholarships will have extras, but if you have those 2 pieces done, now it's just maybe writing a short essay or providing some extra documentation to help to get those. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about here is just planning in advance. So on that website, and it's posted throughout our school, and I know it's posted throughout all the Regina Public Schools, um, is a scholarship that is a scholarship sorry, document that is made with a month by month um, kind of format to it. And so these are going to be all the ones that are shared with our schools. Often there's ones that we've just found in using some of the websites. Um, and so on there, there's a list of kind of what I call the scraper sites. So these are very large scholarship databases that you can create a profile for. You put your information in, you put where it is that you plan to go to school, all those details. And then they start to scrape the internet for you. And every time that there's one that kind of matches your profile, um, they will send those out to you and you're able to then apply for them. So that's a great thing. And then along with that, we have a few other kind of tidbits in there: scholarships for students with disabilities, scholarships for Indigenous students, as well as just some tips and tricks to the scholarships. But then the bulk of that document is going to be each month, all the different ones that are due. Now, we do recommend that students look a month or two ahead. So right now in November, when I'm doing this, there would be some scholarships that were due November 1st, and there might be others that are due at the end of the month. And so it would be important to be looking at that in early October already to get those ones done for the beginning of the month. And also now starting to look towards December and January scholarships as it starts to really kind of ramp up in the new year with scholarships. So February, March, April are kind of the bulk of the time for scholarships as students end that first semester and look towards the next semester. So I think that's all I need. What I will do is when I provide this to the RDIEC folks, I will have some links that also go towards those pages for you. So that will be uploaded to the YouTube video so that all those links are available. And obviously, if you have any questions, please don't feel like you can't reach out to myself or to any other guidance counselors in any of the high schools around your region. And again, I just want to really put a thank you out to RDIC and the work that they do for our students in the movement towards post-graduation and just starting to really understand what it is and what work and school and all the different aspects of life are going to look like as they finish their 4 years in high school. So thank you for taking the time. I hope this is helpful and have a great rest of your school year.